Hello, Misfit Nation. This is Dave Lucas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button below, give this video a like, and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Wiley McGraw. It's not often that we have a former guest back on, but I wanted to do so for our new and growing YouTube audience. Wiley is a former professional baseball player, competitive bull rider, 3-tour combat veteran, founder of Radical Performance Acceleration, and host of the hit podcast Wise Words and Whiskey. Wiley works with the world's highest caliber founders and leaders, from Fortune 500 CEOs to pro athletes, helping them break through and remove their inner demons to help them find deeper meaning, true motivation, and make their true impact. Wiley brings a no-nonsense Navy SEAL style approach that gets results and then some. And I'm excited to dig back in with him on everything from entrepreneurship and how his methods works and how he does what he does so he can help you too. So Wiley, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
Let's get after it, brother. I'm ready.
Hey, man, it is great to have you back on. And there are so many things that we can talk about today with your background. So I'm going to try to squeeze in as much as I can in the time we have. But first, take, and this, I understand this is a tall order, but take 3 minutes, 5 minutes or so, and just tell us, how'd you get to where you're at?
Well, first, Dave, I'm glad to be back with you. Thank you for having me on again. I was looking forward to this conversation today. How did I get to where I'm at today? That's kind of like a hodgepodge, chaotic mess of life in itself. I think we all have our own unique journeys that we can talk about, that were the bumps and bruises and the ups and downs. But personally, for me, it was really about, I was born into an athletic household. So I know we talked about this before. But at a young age, I was forced into the space of learning about teamwork, discipline, learning about accountability, selfless service to others. I grew up with a family of entrepreneurs and executives. So for me, learning about that at a young age was really beneficial in my ability to start having self-reflection as a kid. And not a lot of kids grow up with the self-reflection as a primary value to them. So as I was younger and started my own little side hustles and businesses, trading and selling baseball cards while I played competitive baseball all the way into high school, starting my own business around the neighborhood with my neighbors and whatnot. It was really instilling those disciplined habits, values, and core principles about who I was and my own unique approach to my life that I found through sports and into the world of dealing with family dynamics that were chaotic. A lot of the times people dealing with their own personal demons, learning how to navigate that, learning how to uphold standards for those that couldn't hold them themselves, and how that supported the whole unit as a functioning dynamic. And as I got older and I got into high school and I started to explore more of myself and who I was, which we all do when we're in high school, that's where we start to really develop our personalities and our own unique approach to relating to life. I found that what I had grown up with wasn't what I really wanted for myself. And I sought out more challenging environments that really scared me and pushed me to face more of the unknowns of life. And those unknowns did, in fact, rattle me from within. And it forced me to embrace the fact that life is not roses and rainbows. It is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be ugly. And we cannot control many of the aspects of that are meant to actually, in fact, propel us towards where we're meant to be going. So in high school, I got into competitive bull riding. I found that world to be exciting and enticing, challenging, scary. And that is where I discovered, interacting with those pro cowboys, what it really meant to embrace the unknowns and the ambiguity of life and what could come from that. And it had just birthed even more of this desire to seek out more of that. And the military came knocking. I joined the military, and I did that for 5+ years, active combat infantryman with 101st Airborne Division. And doing my 3 tours overseas, I really developed and understood this innate skill that I naturally possessed as a kid growing up that I didn't understand. And I found all those bumps and bruises, all those combative situations, all of those rebelling moments I had in my life as a kid with my family were purposeful. And they were really helpful for me to be a better leader in the military. And then I took that when I got out. I started to explore the world of self-mastery, facing my demons, having people that really were relentless and putting me in the positions that I could not push back on so that I could see what it is was plaguing me. And then I started to study human performance from there, working with combat veterans, getting them to understand what PTSD for them actually meant, not what society placed on them, battling their demons with them. And then I got to the point where I built this business, and I've been doing basically slaying demons for the last 14 years of leaders, influential people, combat veterans, public figures. Doesn't matter their industry, they're human beings. And they're human beings that really want to break free from the typical self-help norm and get away from consuming books and courses that don't really actually make them face those unknowns, and get into their lives with them to show them what it really looks like to experience the scariness of transformation. And that's what I've been doing.
Well, and I think too, because I obviously knowing a lot about you at this point, having spent a lot of time in conversation, you kind of have different methodology too. You don't just coach people, you go immerse yourself and live with them, right? So talk a little bit about how your methods work, and then we'll get into some of the things obviously that you do and teach people and stuff. So go ahead.
Yeah, and that's I think it's building a business was not how did other people do it before me. Yes, we have a necessity to learn the ropes when it comes to infrastructure. You know, you want to build a corporation, you want to learn how do you do marketing, all those different elements. But my business really was born from just an innate gift that I possess that made people, when I'm in their space with them, reveal their true darkness, the things that are plaguing them naturally. They sometimes don't even know why they're doing it, but they do it. And they realize, wow, I feel safe with you. And I feel good that I can do this with you. But then they kind of step back and realize, oh my gosh, I've never exposed that side of me to anyone before. And that's when we latch together to really actually pull them into that space even further and actually expose more and erupt more of what they are they're specifically dealing with. So for me, the business itself is just a thing that was built around me and what it is that I naturally do with other people, which is I can see what's really plaguing them with their behaviors, their actions, their attitudes. I can feel what's really going on underneath what other people would just identify as typical blocks or things that they need to, work on, personal flaws that they need to read a book about. And I actually go further into the space of shocking that individual. But the way I approach them, the way I say things, the way I interact with them, how I support them, hold them, love them, take care of them. And it really is about an immersion of an experience with that individual based on who they are, where they're at, their capacity to perform, and what they're looking to accomplish, and not approaching it from necessarily what I've studied or what I know, the outside in approach, but more the inside out, where it's going into the. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say you literally go, or they either come live with you or you go live with them for a period of time, right? It's I live with them, and it sounds interesting. People say that sounds kind of crazy on the surface, but the reality is, by the time that I end up actually committing to working with an individual, I've already spent weeks, if not months, with that person, and what I like to call calibration. It really is. Hey, I meet people through third-party introductions. It's never through a funnel or a website or any kind of speaking engagement. Yeah, all word of mouth, right? All word of mouth.
All word of mouth. Even though I might be in public right now, it's still an individual will call me and say, hey, I have a friend who knows about you. They saw what you did to X person. Would you be willing to come sit down and talk to them? And then from there, we just build a relationship. It's about really connecting intimately to figure out whether or not they're going to be ready to handle what it is technically I'm going to put them through, even though I don't even know necessarily at that moment yet what might actually need to happen first and foremost when we officially commit to that relationship. So by the time that the investment of finances is made and the decisions are made for me to buy my ticket and fly to where they are and go live with them, that living with them is part of that full-blown eruption. It's like interjecting a new energy into their lives that they have not had, so that I can experience truly what's going on in their world intimately. And then from there, we just continue on that relationship for a specific amount of time. It could be anywhere from 3 months up to 12 months. And it depends on how far they're willing to let me push them and stretch them to their ultimate level of performance. So with all the work that you've done, high performers, pro athletes, you're dealing with what it's funny because you're working with like the top CEOs, pro athletes, people that like anybody would look up to and look like, oh, these are people who have reached the highest level. They're at the top of their game. And it's kind of funny, not funny, I guess, that they're really not at the top of their game.
right? Like that's the reason you're there, right? So with all the work you've done with all these people, what have you found is the biggest obstacle they have to reaching their true potential?
Yeah, I'm glad
and
you
why?
brought that point up
Because
because I've
you
had
would
so many
think those
different
people have it figured
amazing
out, right?
conversations recently, I would say, with some former pro athletes who have literally told me that the majority of them are performing at maybe 60 to 70% of their true performance potential. And when they expose, it's crazy. But on the surface, for the average person, the layperson, we see it as like these guys are the elite
That's
athletes.
crazy.
And they are elite. Can you imagine being an elite athlete and only performing at 70% of your true potential? And that is because of the dynamics the relationship dynamics with team owners, managers, other players, family dynamics, personal demons that they're still dealing with. They don't really have exposure to the type of resources outside of basic therapy, some coaching tools, reading books, and having their personal trainers, et cetera, that really make them sit in the ugly truth about what is hindering that capacity to hit 100%. So I had a conversation with a pro baseball player, a retired one recently, and he said, man, if I had a guy, at least someone like you who is willing to get up my ass, excuse my French here, with everything going on as it's happening to me, I know that I would be able to hit my full potential. Here's the biggest problem, though, Dave, is most people in those genres, CEOs, those high caliber folks, are around others that are dealing with their own personal demons. So they are not allowing those people to actually break through the ceiling themselves. Like a team owner for a pro baseball team might be dealing with addictions, might be dealing with adultery, might be dealing with problems in his personal life. So of course he's only going to allow his players to go so far because he himself is dealing with that. Thereby, which what happens is if that pro baseball player, since we're using this as an example, were to hit 100% potential, they would have to pay him more money. They don't want to pay him more money. So they are happy keeping these guys capped out. Now, it might be most of the time, it might be unconscious that they're doing this. But a lot of the times that he was telling me, they sometimes are purposely doing that. And that's the dysfunctional aspect of human dynamics that people are kind of dancing around and nobody is attacking head on. Even therapy doesn't attack it head on. We like to just approach it from this whenever you're ready approach, whenever you feel like it, whenever it makes sense for you, whenever it doesn't feel awful or uncomfortable. And I'm the opposite of that. I don't care. I will get into someone and I will fight them head on because I can see what's really hindering that ability to break through that limitation that they have perceived as their cap out point. And for me, it's unacceptable if you're going to have influence and impact on others. So that's just one example of many. But what I have found is the fact is they don't have the right resources in their lives. They have yes men and women, and they allow those people to do just the bare minimum. They control who it is they have around them so they can feel like they're still on top, the big dog, and they don't really get anywhere because they believe it's just an ongoing, never-ending process of growth. And that's the biggest problem.
Right. So, Wiley, 3 tours in war zones. Talk to us about your experience as a soldier and a leader. What did you learn about how to handle pressure and succeed through what were probably some immense and deadly challenges?
Well, to start, the military, it introduced me to a whole new way to look at challenge and an ability to manage your emotions and your focus and stay disciplined despite the pain and the suffering that you have to endure to become a soldier. And what I learned quickly that expanded on even the bull riding days and even the baseball structure that I grew up with was how much more potential I could tap into inside myself when I was facing the challenges of the unknown. In the military, we might have a simple structure of understanding. First, we go to boot camp and we're challenged and stretch and push there. It's where we really get introduced to the military culture, what stress really looks like, because they need you to understand that this is a completely different world. But what was beautiful about that, Dave, is in the military quickly is you learn how to accept the unknown. And I found that by letting whatever it is come at me that I was unprepared for, or I had no clue of what they were going to do to us or me individually, it allowed me to really develop more fortitude, to tap into more of my own grit and my own mental agility and understanding how to face challenges, time events. How do I manage the stress of knowing that this is a pass or fail, or maybe it isn't a pass or fail? They're just trying to assess whether or not I can handle the rigors that typically come with real world experiences like combat. So we take that training and you do it relentlessly. And then once you get to your duty station, as your official MOS training is done and the schools start to begin, you advance in your ability to manage and handle the level of tactics that they put you through on a daily basis. So you can basically stay conditioned to deal with real world events like combat. And eventually I got to utilize that in my first tour in Kosovo at 20 years old. And then, of course, Afghanistan after September 11th, we went over there right away. I was there 01, 02, and then 03 in Iraq. And all three of those tours just built on one another, where I was able to expand in my abilities to manage and understand not only myself, but now I'm responsible for other people around me. It becomes this whole team environment. And that then showcased what was really possible for the human condition that I think we're lacking in typical civilian world is when you're faced with a problem that you have no idea how to solve on the surface, what is your reaction to it? How do you manage the situation, the stress that you might be under, and what it is that you do and strive towards when it comes to problem solving in that certain situation? I think what I really loved about serving in the military, going overseas and being in combat was understanding that life itself is not compartmentalized. Life itself is not a pre-planned, agenda. I think we get really wrapped up in, I need to know what's coming my way. I need to understand what you're going to do. I need to know what the problems might look like so that I could be ready to, receive them or battle them. And I feel that's where people get stuck and they limit themselves in their capacity to be high performing. And when you go to the military concept, becoming a leader in the military, which is not that hard if you have the ability to I guess grit it out. If you have the mettle to handle the mental and emotional games that come along with it, you find that when you're faced with a problem, you just know how to react to it without even thinking. You just know where to go. And if you can't figure it out, you then evolve that state of thinking and you involve other people and you become this like well-oiled machine that knows how to look through and move through different problems. And that to me was one of the most amazing things. Was combat really is the ultimate test of your ability to manage chaos and how to be calm in that. It comes from the fact that we were trained and conditioned over and over again relentlessly. So you're in this contained environment in training, and in war, you're not in a contained environment yet. When the bullets start flying, when people start getting hit, when you have to go in and you have to operate, when you have to kill people, when you look at the ways in which we move as a unit, we're able to complete these tasks more efficiently as a team, and everybody is functioning at the same level you are because their ability to manage the unknowns. And for me, the unknowns are the ultimate level of a true test of it's like a litmus test of your performance capabilities and capacity. And that's what I took from it.
Well, and I'd agree. I think one of the best skills for an entrepreneur to hone is to be able to handle the unexpected, right? And I think I always say, like, as entrepreneurs, we have to have kind of like a healthy paranoia, right? Because like even when things are doing it really, really well, like there just can always be an unknown that comes in or something that drops or pandemic hits or whatever it is, right? And if you're not prepared and have yourself ready to just, okay, this happened, now this is what I have to figure out and get around it and move on. And if you stick or you're stuck at that moment, that's where it makes it really, really hard. I mean, it obviously it's different when bullets are flying at you in the sense that it's life and death, not just so much business, but it's still very similar in the fact that, there are moments in business, moments as an entrepreneur where you literally can be, and I've been there, like, a week or two away from having the doors closed, and you've got to figure it out and make it happen. And you've got maybe 20 employees whose livelihoods are dependent on you and all of that. I mean, it is a very serious situation, right? And that's where, at that point you have to, deal with the emotion, right? Have your 5-minute funeral or pity party for it. But then you got to get to work and you got to get logic going, right? And you got to think it through and you got like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. What are the things that I can control? What are the things that I can't, and so you start asking how, I think, and that kind of activates the center of the mind to go where maybe you haven't been before. I think a lot of people when faced with things will be like, I can't. And that just stops the mind from from acting right there. But if you start saying, well, how can I overcome this? How can I do this? That activates the mind. It seems like, that's kind of what happens in the military is like, how am I going to get out of this situation alive? And you just start figuring it out. And,
yeah, you do.
Right. I mean, you know, so to that point, coming through that, and I'm sure you were in some firefights that were pretty hair raising and everything.
A few.
What are your top lessons in leadership that you feel help entrepreneurs most from just your experience today?
You said it right now, and I want to make sure I capture this for people that are listening to it, is taking action. And I think that is it's a cliche, but it's also a very underutilized attribute. People get caught up in the moment and they worry about the future of the outcome. And so that basically freezes them up when they're facing a challenge or a problem they need to be solved, like the pandemic hitting. If you're not ready for things like that and you don't just take some action, you're going to end up losing. And you're right. Business is shutting down as livelihoods for other people. It could be life and death for some people who are depending on that business to thrive. So what I would say is the military specifically, what I really love about it is that it's all about acting. And there's the special operations pipelines that the training courses and the things that, even I did in the unit I served in, was there a lot of times they put you in these situations where the problem can't be solved. They want to see how you react to a problem that cannot be solved and see where your thinking goes and how you utilize the people around you. And there's another aspect to that is, I would say, is people also, leaders especially now more than ever, are the biggest culprits to this. Is they believe because of the leader, if they don't solve that problem, they can't figure it out, then it's not a problem that can be solved. And then they end up like sweeping it under the rug, or they ignore it instead of leaning on people in their teams, instead of relying on their senior people, even their most junior people. And I want people to take that piece of advice is the best part about being a leader is the fact that it's not about you, it's about them. And it is about relying on them. It's about asking them, you work for them, bringing them on board when you're faced with a problem that it has a time limit. It can help you solve an unsolvable situation. And that's, to me, is like, I'm even getting chills thinking about it right now. Was, we got ambushed in Iraq in 2003, and we didn't see where the ambush was coming from right off the bat, but they threw hand grenades into our mounted patrol. So we had all got out to look at the map. We pulled security, then we hear a grenade. So they threw 3 or 4 grenades into our mounted patrol, and some people immediately got hit. And it's amazing is we had what we call as pogues, people that are other, personnel other than grunt. It's like an inside joke that we have with them. We had our supply NCO, we had our NBC guy. They turned around to start open fire towards the direction where those grenades came from. So everybody just knew how to act. They took action. And then once you take action and you send rounds down range to suppress wherever that fire is coming from, what we were able to do was we were able to then problem solve and figure out how do we now eliminate the threat. And I think what happens too sometimes is people get caught up in the proverbial gunfight in life. And what they don't do is they don't act. They panic. They retreat. They go back to their base level of performance capacity, as I like to call it. And it's because they haven't pushed themselves outside of their own proverbial comfort zones truly in anything that they've ever done to prepare themselves for leadership or running a business. They've hired coaches or resources that actually allow them to stay comfortable and give them just enough. And that is where you tend to find the failure that really kills people's dreams and kills people's momentum. And I would act. If you're getting hit with something you're unexpected, act. Take action. Figure out how to plug your hole with the finger, and then turn around, look at people and go, hey, how do we now permanently, plug this hole? Do something rather than nothing. Action is better than doing nothing. Move. Get the hell out of, get off the X's, they say in the military. Get out of the line of fire, turn around, figure out where it's coming from, and then we can problem solve. And then that's how we complete the mission.
Yeah. And it's this, it really is that simple for so many things in life. Like, for example, the only way to start losing weight, other than your eating, is you got to move. Start moving,
right?
Even if it's a little bit, and then add to it, and so on and so on, right?
Even when you don't want to do it, that's the biggest thing. Is even when you don't want to do it, that is when you absolutely must.
Well, that's true. That's true discipline, is doing the things you know you need to do, even when you don't want to do them. right? And
It
that's, I think,
sucks.
it does, but that's what it means to truly be disciplined, right? You
Right.
know, so I think that's I talk about the what I call the DCP formula all the time, which is discipline, consistency, and persistence. And you hear
Mhm.
those three things, and it's like, duh, you need that to be successful. What do they mean, right? Discipline is just that. It's doing the things that that you need to do even when you don't want to do them. And the C is consistency. It's doing that day in and day out without fail, right? Because you can be
Yep.
disciplined for one day, right? That's not
Sure.
going to do any good. You got to
Sure.
do it every
Sounds
day.
good.
But
Yeah.
even if you're disciplined and consistent, you're going to hit like these insurmountable roadblocks, these plateaus, these things that just seem like you can't make it, or you're not going to be able to overcome it. And if you're not willing to persist at that point, that's where you stagnate. That's where you plateau. That's where you're at. And
Absolutely.
so that's what you got to do. And I kind of hear that coming through. Um, to that point, too, kind of an offshoot from that, what are some of the lessons you feel translate well to entrepreneurship from your pro baseball career and being a competitive bull rider?
Really, it is about fundamentals, getting back to the basics. We get so wrapped up in, again, nowadays with all the influencers online and all the
Mm,
experts around what it means to be successful. We've kind of lost track, I would say severely, on what it means to be a good human, what it means to be a human that knows how to operate at the fundamental level. The basics matter. And I will tell you that people look at the tier one, tier two, tier three operators in the military and go, wow, why are those guys so badass? But it's because they always work on the basics. They have the discipline, the consistency, and they're willing to do the fundamentals. They wake up daily going, I'm a new student today and I don't know shit. And I worked with an Olympic athlete who did the same thing. He was a hammer thrower, gold medalist. And he would say, Wiley, I'd wake up every morning and I realized I don't know anything today. What am I going to learn? How am I going to improve my
mm,
fundamentals so that I can consistently perform at the top of my game, rather than thinking, well, I know all of this stuff. Now I need to go figure out what's next, what's better for me, and let me find the next biggest, shiniest thing that I can bring into my life. And sometimes that you don't need that. You just
right.
need to get back to the basics. And baseball was a fundamental sport. I know people hear it's boring, but to me it was fun being a pitcher, making sure you were consistent in your training, warming yourself up right, exercising properly for the fundamentals, and then allowing those baseline efforts to then birth your performance capabilities. And bull riding was the same thing. Hey, how do I improve my skills as a bull rider? Well, I have to practice on the barrel. I have to work on my physical fitness. I have to make sure that my body is ready for the rigors that come with riding a wild animal like that. Military is the
Mm.
same way. It goes back to that discipline of fundamentals. And if we can get humans to stop looking at how do I become more successful and get them back to how do I become a better person, a better me first, and trust that the
Mhm.
success will follow from that, then I think we can change the paradigm of entrepreneurship, and businesses can then do more to create more sustainable growth and outcomes for society and the country and as a whole.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you stated like wake up every day and ask like just approach it like I don't know anything and what do I need to learn? What's the one thing that I can learn to improve today, right? I think that's
Right.
a great way to go about life and in these different things, as well as business, because we don't know everything,
Mm.
even though even if you've done something for 20 years, you can still learn
Right.
something, right? And I think
Right.
um, you know, yeah, there's the cliche about being a constant learner and all that stuff, but it's not just about the learning. It's about actually learning, then putting that stuff into action and making a
Right.
difference,
Yeah.
right, and getting a
Yeah.
result with
Knowledge
it.
without
And
action is nothing. It's
yeah, it's just information, right? So
yep.
that, I think that's the key to it all is like, learn and then do, learn and then do, and iterate, but never stop learning and doing. I think that
Yep.
to me is one of the most fundamental things for success in anything. Um, my last question for you before we get to your Misfit 3,
Mm.
wise words in whiskey. What's your favorite label?
My favorite label. Well, I'm a single malt guy. That's my preference. I grew up in a Scottish Irish household. My dad is a connoisseur, so for me, I grew up around the single malts. I do like a good blend, but my go to distillery that I really do appreciate is the Balvenie. That is the one I tend to keep as like a house Scotch. I have the Balvenie Doublewood 12, but I like to explore the palettes of different types of whiskey. So I'm not a snob. I definitely am not shut off to others, but that's my primary go to. Yeah.
Awesome, man. It's a great way to end it before we get to your Misfit 3. We're going to do that.
Right.
We're going to jump right into it, actually. The Misfit 3 is something that we've done since the day we started this. And the way that I always frame it is that if you were going to leave this earth tomorrow and you could only leave behind your 3 most important pieces of wisdom for the generations that come after you, what would those 3 things be? So, Wiley, what are your Misfit 3?
If I was to leave something right now behind, the 3 things, number one, it's focus. I really wish we had more focus in our society. People are undisciplined when it comes to their focus. So what I would say is focus on yourself first. Stop looking at the world around you as the culprit to your problems, because I promise that 99% of the things that you're dealing with have everything to do with your relationship with the world around you, with yourself, your health, your mindset, and your emotional capabilities. Number one is focus. So I would stop distracting yourself and have some I would say just like a minutia of discipline to focus on you. And I promise your world will change around you. The other thing, that second thing I would say is, everybody says, I'm going to say it again, you've got to do the hard stuff. And I'm not talking about the hard stuff that you like, the stuff you can figure out how to control. I'm talking about you have to be scared when it comes to your personal desires and your endeavors. You have to realize that will that you have, you've got to be willing to trust that you don't know everything, and you have to go out and do the things that scare the crap out of you, because that's where you're going to find what you're really made of. And I think that there are people that can do that and there are people that can't. But those that really want a better life, they've got to be willing to actually do the things that scare the crap out of them. The third thing I would say is stop comparing yourself to everybody else's life. Your cross to bear is your cross to bear. You need to really be truly passionate about yourself and what you want to create out in the world, and stop trying to mimic, follow, and look and act like somebody else that has what you think you want. Because most of the time, what I have found in my experience is most people actually think they want something, and when they get it, it's not really what they wanted. And I feel like they're 40, 50 years old looking back and go, why did I waste 20 years trying to chase this thing over here? And the reality is I just wanted to do this over here. And that's the thing, is quiet down the voice inside, start having some faith that you're on the right path, even if it doesn't look like it, and just do the action that it takes to figure out what you really do want to see out in the world, what you want to be out in the world. And that's going to be the piece that's going to make the difference in whether or not you're successful.
Wiley, it's an excellent Misfit 3. Love all 3 of those. Lead yourself first. It makes total sense. If people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Sure, brother. I have WileyMcGraw.com is the website we threw together after the pandemic, all the philosophies and insights, some videos, et cetera. We wanted to just share what it is that I'm all about and talk about like we did today. I'm on Twitter at Wiley McGraw as well. And then I have the podcast at Wise Words and Whiskey with Wiley McGraw. We took a hiatus, but we're getting ready to rev things back up. We got some really cool guests coming on.
Excellent. We'll link to all that in the show notes, the best show notes in the business. No offense,
Yes.
For reasons I'll talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to this, it's your first time seeing us, your first time, hearing us, watching us. It is such an honor to have you with us, and I hope you become a regular subscriber. And for all of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you. And make sure and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself. As part of my personal growth routines and my weekly processes, I go back through these episodes and I take my best pieces of wisdom, insight, tips, actions, things like that from people like Wiley that you can make a difference for yourself with and share those with you. So check those out. And then also go out and give this episode a rating, a review, share this with others, subscribe to our channel, and give it a thumbs up and everything as well too, so that others can find it. Because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Wiley shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, Wiley, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.